or not, and I'm being completely serious. Like if you just check the comment section online, it's actually mostly negative. Most people are saying it looks horrible, looks like a refrigerator on wheels, it's a disaster of a design. But once you start living with this thing, you drive around with it and you talk to people about it who have never heard of it, they're saying things like, this is crazy, this is like a movie prop, it's sci-fi, looks something alien. So there's a lot to it. Here, first of all, stainless steel and black plastic. That's mostly what we're working with here. And the front, I think it has a good angle, to be honest. I'm a sucker for a light bar, but the actual headlights are down here, so they stay out of people's eyes. In general, it's like a square jawline, no curves, just angles. But the back, not so much. It's still technically a bar, yes, but it's a little bit dinkier in my opinion. And also just tons of black plastic in the back, really high tailgate. I'm getting like dump truck vibes from back here. I don't think I'm the only one. I don't think the back is its best angle, but if I had to narrow it down, I'm pretty sure the most iconic profile is the side. And the two elements of this truck that really stand out are this slope, these high shoulders, and then the pointy corners on the other side. See, most pickup trucks have basically this general shape. It's the traditional pickup truck look. And so we're not used to seeing this angle right here and this huge slope right here. It's unusual, it's weird, it's very visually interesting. So I've been living with this Cybertruck for about a month now, well over 1,500 miles. And you notice a couple things. First of all, people, whenever you go park somewhere, always want to come up to you and talk about it. Naturally, I've entertained a lot of these conversations because they're fun. And they usually say two things. One, you'd be surprised how many people have never heard of the Cybertruck. I know for us online people watching this video, you're like, how could anyone have not heard of the Tesla Cybertruck? But you'd be shocked. And two, most people just want to know, how much does that thing cost? And I got asked that so many times, eventually I just started having people guess. And 100% of the people who guessed were too high. People were guessing 250, 300K, 180K, 150K. They're all way over. But how could they know? They don't know what the rest of the truck is. They've just seen this thing they've never seen for the first time. And so I guess the conclusion is the looks are really distracting people from the rest of what makes the Cybertruck the Cybertruck. Okay, let's play a little game. I'm going to name a feature, and all you have to do is think about it for a second and think about if you believe it's overrated or underrated. And then I, someone who's been driving this truck, will tell you the real answer. So, first feature. Steer-by-wire. I've seen a few good pieces cover what's actually happening here, talking about the complete physical disconnect between the steering wheel you're holding and the wheels that are moving under the truck. Instead, it's a bunch of sensors reacting to your input like a video game controller, but combined with the variable steering ratio and the four-wheel steering, this is the most nimble, agile-feeling truck that I've ever driven. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. So I'm going underrated. It's one of those things where Tesla definitely didn't have to do this. Like, they've made their headlines already with the looks. It could just be a Model 3 underneath, but they went through the extra measures and the extra engineering to ship a full steer-by-wire system and all the redundancies that come with making it safe. I believe they're the first ones to do this. But the variable steering ratio is really what gives it all of its utility. So at low speeds, the ability to turn really quickly gets dialed up. It's a much more responsive feeling steering wheel. So if I want to turn right here, I only have to give it, half a turn, quarter turn, and I'm fully maneuvering. The way you can pull into parking spots and make 90-degree turns and everything is a total game changer. But then at highway speeds, it softens that ratio a lot. So you have a little bit of steering input to sort of glide left and right between different lanes. It's much more subtle. You kind of need that. But then on top of that, throw in the four-wheel steering. So four-wheel steering is not new. Lots of vehicles have done it, but the amount of steer that you get from these rear wheels is pretty dramatic, to the point where you can look in the mirrors and see those wheels turning. And this can also be adjusted with software, but that really lets this huge truck basically pivot around a much smaller axis. The steering ratio now, I think, is at the same steering circle as a Model S, but it feels really, really impressive just because of how big the actual vehicle is. It definitely takes some getting used to. You can't ignore that fact. But once you get used to it, you literally feel like when you go back to like an F-150 or any other truck where you have all this hand-over-hand steering to do the K-turns, that feels weird. It feels archaic. It feels like you shouldn't have to do that. So again, Tesla definitely didn't have to do that, but just the way you can drive it like a smaller car and really point the nose, I don't know. It's definitely underrated. All right, next feature. Bulletproof stainless steel. Overrated or underrated? I'm going with, you probably saw this one coming, I'm going with overrated. Now look, first of all, I get it. Obviously having a very durable truck is super useful, of course. But bulletproof up to 9mm rounds? Yeah, I'm not going to test that, but there are some other YouTubers out there who totally will. Yeah, I'm not going to test that, but there are some other YouTubers out there who totally will, and apparently it can literally stop smaller rounds without being punctured. But also, the glass windows aren't bulletproof. They're more of just stronger than regular glass. And then it's regular wheels, regular tires that can still get slashed. So don't go getting any ideas that this thing is invincible or anything like that. But clearly, cold-rolled stainless steel alloy is going to be much stronger than the regular outside of the vehicle. So that's the shopping cart in the back of the parking lot. That's fender benders. Or if someone hits you, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. But guess what? It also means your truck is now made of an extremely fingerprinty material, and it also doesn't have normal door handles, so you just cannot keep it clean if you use this thing daily. And then steel just happens to be really hard to manipulate. Apparently Tesla had to create new machines strong enough to stamp this material together. There's a reason why there aren't a bunch of other cars rolling around looking like this. So when I say in the autofocus review that low-VIN Cybertrucks will have low-VIN production issues, that's not actually new to Tesla. They've had to spin up manufacturing for different types of vehicles before, and usually the first few thousand of them aren't pretty. But then they learn from those issues, and then 1 or 2 years down the road, they're making millions of the thing, and they're much better quality control. So This particular Cybertruck is a dual motor, all-wheel drive. This was borrowed from Ridge. On delivery, this one had a pretty big panel gap on the driver's side door. And, I never really care about panel gaps, but this one in particular actually started growing and getting worse. It literally looked like the door was open. And then it started making weird noises while closing until one day it actually broke. So it turns out it wasn't a panel gap. It was actually a manufacturing issue where the bolts that hold this latch in place were actually not torque tight enough and they loosened over time and it fell out. And so Miles actually had the bright idea to just gaff tape the latch securely back in place. And now when you close the door, lines up perfectly. So Elon Musk addressed this on Twitter after my video. Apparently, only 15 trucks had this issue, so lucky me, I guess. So if you are one of the few, then you can apparently just take this to a Tesla service center and they'll be able to fix it in no time as long as you get an appointment. The Cyber Beast that I took delivery of under my name has been flawless so far, but I think the point I'm trying to make is these early Cybertrucks, as with any other early Tesla, they're going to find, I guarantee you, more issues like this, and they'll work on them and fix them. But yeah, this Foundation Series badge right here, kind of clouded in the Tesla community because it basically means you got one of the first few, but it also kind of means willing beta tester in a way. So, these materials and this new stamping technique and all this should eventually make the vehicles much easier to produce in mass and cheaper. But that's eventually. All right, next feature, truck stuff. I'm talking about the theoretical reasons why someone would logically buy a truck over any other vehicle, like a van or an SUV or a car. And that would be for towing, hauling, and off-roading. And I know it looks like this truck would be amazing at all of that stuff, but I'm gonna say that this one, it's overrated. It's overrated here, and I'll tell you why. Now, don't get me wrong, the Cybertruck, very capable. It's much more capable than any other Tesla, obviously. I can confirm it handles winter weather really well, like it has a heated windshield wiper and the heated mirrors, and the door can, in fact, open and ice.